Chapter. We're talking real money.
Let's talk death insurance, shall we? I know it's called life insurance, but I prefer the term death insurance because life insurance sounds way too positive, and it's really death insurance. We're going to talk a little bit about death insurance and what you should have and what you shouldn't have. Hi, everybody. I'm Don McDonald. This is Talking Real Money, and insurance is definitely a money part of your life. It's expensive stuff, and it makes people a lot of money. Usually not you. I'm sorry, but usually not you. Tom is taking the weekend off to go, well, I have to say, no offense, but hopefully suffer another Raiders loss. Sorry, but I'm a Denver Broncos fan, so Raiders losses are always good from my perspective. So I'm hoping he enjoys a disappointing time in Las Vegas, at least from that perspective. The other parts can be perfectly pleasant, but I hope the Raiders lose. And so it's just me. I'm here hanging out with you on my wedding anniversary. My wife probably over by the pool at the Grand Floridian where we got married. And I'll be joining her in a little over an hour. So give me a call in the interim, 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. As you are probably aware, I think it was Mark Twain who said there are two things you can count on, and that's death and taxes. And because we're all going to die, we sometimes need to protect our loved ones from our loss, particularly, well, almost always, if our loss involves a loss of income. If you're the breadwinner in your family and your early departure from this mortal coil would cause some harm to your spouse or children financially, then you probably should have death insurance. It's not life insurance. It doesn't ensure that you live. It insures your family if you die. So you should probably have it. Now, there are two kinds of death insurance. Well, okay, there are variations on these two themes. There is term life insurance, which is death insurance for a particular period of time. It's a set amount for a particular period of time. You pay a premium every month, and over this term, X amount, and it's set in concrete for that term, thus the term, and your family gets something if you die within that term, up to whatever age. Usually it's a younger age. You won't get term life insurance at any kind of a reasonable price as you get closer to death because, well, the risks are higher. So there's another kind of insurance, and that's cash value life, and it comes in various forms. The oldest form is whole life, but it's a cash value product where you pay a bigger premium every month. It's much bigger than term. You generally have a smaller death benefit, even though you're paying more. If you're paying as much for term as you are for whole, then your death benefit's going to be tiny. And the term never ends. You keep paying and paying. Now, the amount you pay can go up, but you keep paying and paying, and you continue to have a death benefit for as long as you live, as long as you keep paying. But you also build up some cash. Because what they've done, the insurance companies created a hybrid. It's death insurance attached to a savings account, in essence. That's all it is. And it's not very attractive as a savings account either. Although people who pitch them make them seem more attractive than they really are because they're making a commission off of you. So a lot of people very responsibly bought whole death insurance in their younger years. And I was reading an article in AARP about a couple who, when they were married back in 1984, they bought whole life policies, and they're still paying on these whole life policies. And the husband's policy has a death benefit of $200,000 and a cash value of $93,000. The wife's is $200,000 death benefit with a cash value of $70,000. The premiums have been rising now at about 11% annually, and they're now more than $2,000 a year. So their question to AARP was, should we keep these policies for the death benefit, or should they cash out? And it's the answer pretty, well, I'll tell you the answer in a minute. 855-935-TOM.
Tom and Don are talking real money. Your guides to a really great financial future. Tom and Don are talking real money.
Here to talk about your money. I'm Don McDonald. Tom's gone for the weekend, and so it's just us at 855-935-8255. There, I did it slowly. 8255. Death insurance. Got a couple. There's an article in AARP, the magazine. A couple with whole death insurance policies with a death benefit of $200,000. Cash value between the two of them, the two policies, about $160,000. And they're paying more than $2,000 a year because the premiums keep rising as they get closer and closer to dying ages. So they asked the experts, should they keep the policy or should they cash it out? Now, of course, they hemmed and hawed and carried on throughout the article and saying, well, it really depends. And yeah, I guess it does. But I got to tell you, for the most part, I've looked at lots and lots and lots of these situations. And these two folks are 62. Every year, that policy is going to get more and more expensive. It is going to cost a fortune. And the reality is, if you make it to 62, the odds are good that you're going to live. As a matter of fact, an actuary figured it out. The man, he's 62 now, he has a 92% chance of getting to age 76. Which means if he takes the cash value and invests it in the stock market at a relatively conservative 7% per year, he'll have, at age 76, $210,000 or more than the death benefit. So if you're going to live a reasonable period of time, yeah, if he died tomorrow and he took the cash out of the policy, he wouldn't have the death benefit for his wife anymore. But here's where the big question lies. This is the question everyone needs to ask before you buy any death insurance. Does someone need the money that I make? And when you get into retirement, well, what money are you making, really? I mean, you got two Social Securities, but your spouse will get the higher of the two, and you'll have some other assets because you cashed out of the thing. So why do you need it? Death insurance is for the young most of the time. Death insurance is not for the old unless you want to give somebody a death lottery. Hey, I'm dead. Congratulations. Let's have a big party on my death benefit. So generally speaking, death insurance should be term for almost everybody, and unless there's some estate planning purpose, and there's some cases where that might make sense to have cash value. Otherwise, you only own it when you need it. Never have insurance that you don't need, which generally means don't buy whole life at all. 855-935-TALK. Let's talk about money. And Trent in Hawaii, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. My name is Trevor.
Oh, Trev. Trevor. I'm sorry.
You're good. Hey, I want to say thanks for you guys' content. I actually came across you from listening to Clark Howard, and I wish I'd come across your content 10, 15 years ago. I would pay a lot for learning the lessons I've learned from you.
Well, we're glad we can help now.
My question is, yeah, exactly. My question is on mid-caps. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering why mid-cap index funds typically are ignored when discussing asset allocation. It seems like mid-caps are often an afterthought in relation to like small cap blend or small cap value, large cap blend, large cap value. I mean, even I've looked at some of Paul Merriman's stuff, and even in his content, there's just a focus on large and small cap. And even in my internet research, and so just out of just ignorance, I'm just trying to learn why are mid caps typically less.
I'd love to. I'll give you my answer, and I think it's Tom's answer, and probably even Paul's. Too many caps. It just adds confusion. You cover the majority of the market capitalization of the stock market in the large. The mids have never shown any historical tendency to outperform. So generally speaking, most people already own large cap portfolios. They don't invest in small or mid. If you own the S&P 500, you're pretty much a large cap person. That's all you got. So his belief, our belief, we share this belief, is that the asset class that really kicks your portfolio into gear is small in value. Small value, even better. So there's really not a big benefit in adding that in and adding confusion. Now, let me just add on to that. The simplest way to do this is not to worry about large, mid, small, all of these various things. The trick and this is Paul's simplest portfolio. His simplest portfolio is buy a target date fund and then buy a small cap value fund. Because the target date fund is going to give you the market, large and mid and small, all of those, but just less of them. And then the small cap value is going to give you that little historical kicker that we've had in the past. We don't know if we're going to have it in the future, but we know we had it in the past. Our philosophy is, like, for example, somebody who's in the acquisition phase, buy something like VT or AVGE, and then if you want to enhance the potential, just buy a small cap value like AVUV. But you don't need to mess with mid. Okay. It just adds another thing to deal with. It's not that it's bad necessarily. It's just that it's unnecessary.
I see. No, and I think from listening to you guys, I think that's one of the things that I've learned a lot about is kind of cutting out the nonsense and the noise and just focusing on the long-term game. Yep. So I thank you for that.
We really believe that a two-fund portfolio, either a 2 or a 3-fund portfolio, can take care of any portfolio's reasonable needs. You don't have to make it complicated. Okay?
That's helpful. One more quick question.
Sure.
So I'm 40 years old, active duty military, getting ready to retire. So I anticipate as part of my, assets coming in, a pension of about $4,000 a month. I've been historically very aggressive in my asset allocation, pretty much 100% stocks. And I was wondering what your thoughts are of when an appropriate time would be to transition into bonds.
When you get a lot closer to needing money from your portfolio. And that may be never. Okay, because think about it. If you've got a pension coming up relatively soon, and then you're going to have Social Security, and then you may have a 401k and all of that, well, it depends on what your lifestyle's like at the time you're getting close to retirement. We believe that it's time to really start focusing on the proper allocation for your risk profile when you get closer to retirement. When you're young, it should be aggressive because you've got time. Unless, of course, you're just scared to death of the market, which it sounds like you're not.
No, I'm not. But I guess, again, reading kind of news articles and stuff like that, it's more of a generic advice, but I've never been able to kind of talk through this. But what you're saying is kind of along the mindset that I've had is, hey, I've got time. Why not go a little more aggressive if I can handle it?
Yep. When you get into your 50s, when you start thinking about retirement, that's when you really should probably sit down with an advisor and start to calculate. Again, I want to make this clear. Your risk profile, not your risk tolerance. That's only part of your profile.
Okay. That's helpful.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your service. We really appreciate you. Even though you're on Oahu, aren't you?
Welcome.
Right?
I am. I just recently got stationed here.
Yeah, my wife's an Air Force brat, so she spent a lot of time there, and she tells me how nice it is. Someday I'm going to visit, but not anytime soon. Thanks for the call. I really appreciate you being there and all that you do. And 855-935-TALK is our phone number. That's 855-935-8255. And Kelly, you're up next. Welcome to our show.
Hi. Thank you for taking the call.
Glad to do it.
So I have a rental home, that I've owned for, I guess it's been 20 years. I refinanced it when the interest rates dropped, so I've got a pretty low interest rate on it for commercial property. The question is, I've been flirting with when's the right time to sell it? Do I wait until I actually need the money, or would it be better to just sell it now while values are high and then invest the money, and then I'm done with the somewhat of a hassle of being a landlord? Or I keep looking at where housing prices are going and thinking, there's going to come a time when young people are not going to be able to afford houses, and therefore the value will drop.
Okay, you answered the answer to your question was hidden right there in the middle, because to try to pick the right time is impossible. Real estate prices go up, they go down, they go up, they go down. They don't move as much as stock prices, or at least they haven't historically, but they rise and fall. We don't believe in trying to time the market. But you answered your question when you said the hassle. Get rid of the hassle.
Yeah.
The time to sell is when the hassle is no longer worth what you're making.
Yeah, I do make a bit of money every year, usually between $7,000 and $12,000, depending on what kind of work needs to be done. And then there's a year it needed a roof, and I didn't make anything.
Okay, so here's what you should do. Here's what you should do. This will make the whole thing a lot easier. Go back over the last decade or so. Calculate what your total income was. I don't want you to count the capital gain right now. Just what was your total income, and how many hours did you spend earning that? Tell me how much you made per hour.
Okay,
if it's a lot, then maybe it's a good job. But if it's $10 or $15 or $20 an hour, well, you're wasting your time, and your money might work harder for you elsewhere. Thanks for the call, Kelly. Take care.
Tom and Don are talking real money. For your real life and real future, Tom and Don are talking real money.
Once again, the phone number here is 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. Now, the reason I suggested to Kelly that she not calculate in capital gains is because, well, had she invested the money, for example, let's say 20 years ago, she paid $100,000 for the house. I'm just throwing a number out, just a number. I don't know what she paid. And she invested that in the stock market over the last 20 years. Well, she would have seen that money grow to about $500,000, which I would be willing to bet is about what $100,000 in the real estate. In fact, I would be willing to bet it's less than what $100,000 in the real estate market grew to. Given that, I wouldn't calculate the capital gain, because you're going to make money on that money somewhere anyway, and it'll be likely at least at a comparable rate. So really what you have to factor in is, how much time am I spending working on this? Because remember, you don't work on stock investments. If you invest in VT, how much work are you going to put in over the next 20 years watching that grow? None. So you don't need to be paid for time you're not spending. However, when you're managing investment property, you do put time in. I was a landlord a couple of times, and I hated it. It was too much work for too little money. When you calculate it, it just looks bad. I mean, and by the way, if you want to own real estate, you can just buy a REIT, real estate investment trust. Then you own a diversified portfolio of real estate. The only reason we think real estate makes us more money is because of the leverage. But we forget that leverage cuts both ways. It magnifies your returns, and it magnifies your losses. Matter of fact, interesting story, just saw it recently. Florida has some new rules about condos. And condo associations now have to look. This is because of the collapse of the condo in South Florida, the building that collapsed and killed all those people. They now have to do a really in-depth structural engineering report on these buildings, and they have to increase their reserve funds. Now, if you've never owned a condo, you may not understand how this works, but actually it works for any of us who have a house. If you're living in a condo, the condo association is supposed to put aside money to take care of repairs in the future. However, most condo, and I've served on community boards, and we have reserves, by the way. I'm the president of our HOA. Nobody likes overfunding reserves. They want to underfund reserves as much as possible. Why do current homeowners want to underfund reserves? Because they're selfish. Now, you won't get anybody to admit they're selfish. Well, they'll come up with some whacked excuse. But the reality is they don't want to overfund reserves for those really horrific expenses that, just ask anyone in Asheville, can happen, or anyone on the west coast of Florida can happen, or people in Fort Pierce can happen, because they don't want to pay it now. They'd rather have the people in the future pay it, the person to whom they sell the condo. Well, Florida now requires condo associations to properly fund, and we're seeing condo associations, we just saw one locally here, where the residents got a special assessment for $31,000 each. So what's happening with condo prices in Florida now is you're seeing a tendency for them to fall. Now, they could fall precipitously because a lot of people are going to be unable. That $31,000 financed out increased these folks' dues to about $1,500 a month. That's for somebody who owns the house free and clear. You got to throw their mortgage and their insurance on top of that. So a lot of these people are not going to be able to afford it. They're going to start selling condos. I believe they're going to start selling like mad. Not market timing. It's just common sense. And as they do, the price is going to go down. And when the price goes down, if you only have a little bit of money as a down payment, equity in the house, you could lose it all.
Tom and Don are talking real money. Reality radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Hey there, welcome back to the show. I'm Don McDonald. This is Talking Real Money, the radio show, and then next week, the podcast. I'm Don McDonald. Tom Cock is off to Las Vegas to watch a football game. I, on the other hand, am here talking with you and inviting you to call me at 855-935-8255. 855-935-TALK. It's really easy, and I love chatting with you about your money. I've been doing it since 1988. Really? Since 1988. That's when I did my first financial talk show on Business Radio Network. Summer of 1988. Been doing this a long time, so I probably picked up a thing or two along the way. So call me. I'll try and help you out. 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. Everybody in the financial media seems to crank out the same kinds of articles, and they really bother me. But apparently they work because they get me to read them. This one is from Morningstar, and it's entitled, 5 of the Best Ways to Invest Money. Intriguing. The best? The best. They start out the article saying the term best means different things to different people. Really? You know, the best should be the best. But they give you a lot of bests. Best way to invest money, the 5 things. 1, balanced funds. Okay. Yeah. Target date funds. Variation on the balanced fund idea, except they change the allocation over time. A total market index fund. Okay, we go along with that. Just 1? No, wait. Number 4 is a 3-fund portfolio. Oh. Or 5, a custom fit portfolio made just for you. That's what an advisor would do. That's what an advisor would do. Balanced fund, pretty much self-explanatory. 60% stocks, generally 40% bonds. They suggested several of them, none of which I would suggest you buy, all of them actively managed. American Funds, T. Rowe Price, and Vanguard, Wellington. But not the Vanguard Balanced Index, which I don't understand I do understand Morningstar sometimes. They're selling a rating system. I use them for their data, not for their ratings systems. Then they go to the target date. Now, target date is something that we suggest too. It's a simple way to get the right allocation for your age. It doesn't take into account your risk profile, your needs or wants or any of that stuff. It's just kind of right for your age, which makes it okay. They're okay. But again, the funds that this author suggests are American Funds, T. Rowe Price, and Fidelity Freedom, all of which are actively managed. Now, they recommend the American Funds. Now, I looked at the American Funds 2050 Target Date Fund, and this fund has relatively high expenses, although not as high as some of their other funds. And if you buy it through a broker, you're going to pay a commission of 5.75% to get in. And what are you going to get for that? Well, you're going to get performance that is very, very similar to the Vanguard Target Retirement 2050 Fund, which is an index fund with a much lower expense ratio, a much more diversified portfolio, therefore reduced volatility, similar return, reduced volatility. So why would the folks at Morningstar suggest the American Funds? And again, I believe it's probably in large part because American Funds advertises with them. T. Rowe Price advertises with them. These guys wouldn't advertise with them. So I think it, yeah, I mean, you could buy these funds, but why pay more for them? Because that extra fee is likely to detract from returns. Then they go to the total market funds, and I'm okay with this. I mean, except they didn't really do total market. It's just the total U.S. They suggested Fidelity, iShares Core S&P Total U.S., and Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF VTI, which is just the U.S. They forgot international. 855-935-TALK.
Tom and Don are talking real money. Your guides to a really great financial future. Tom and Don are talking real money.
General advice. There's a lot of it out there, and you kind of need to be wary of it, even from us, because there needs to be some degree of specificity or at least consideration of. And although you can get by with some broad rules, I think that they're so simple that you say them once and you really probably don't need to say them again, which we do because it's the truth. So if you want some more specificity, call me, 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. Every Saturday we get together on the radio and talk about money. And it's easy and it's free, and I've got lines open and I've got time to spend with you. So give me a call, 855-935-8255. Before the break, I was looking at an article from Morningstar that's telling us the 5 best ways to invest money. People love numbers on lists. Paul Merriman taught me that. Always put numbers on your, make a list. People love lists. So I mentioned balanced funds, target date funds, or they did, and the total market index funds, where they forgot the rest of the world. The U.S. is not the total market. Now, I like the fact that these are index funds because they're inexpensive, and they're the market, just without the international parts. I think those should be there. So I think they missed the boat there. Then they said, build a three-pun. No, Tom would build a 3-pun portfolio. I would build a 3-fund portfolio. Not sure where they got 3, but they said 3. And they probably mean, and they didn't say in this article, I mean, one of them is bonds, then the other would be stocks. Oh, it's here it says non-U.S. stocks. So you can do it with two, though. This is why I don't see why they're making it more complicated. Why do you need a U.S. stock fund, a non-U.S. stock fund, and a bond fund? Why don't you just get a stock fund and a bond fund? It's got the whole world in it. And then finally, the best way to invest, a portfolio built for you. That's what we say is the ultimate. Eventually, you're going to need a portfolio built for you and your situation, your risk profile, your future needs, your tax situation, and all of those things. And that's where you have the very difficult job of finding a fee-only, true fiduciary advisor who's not going to mislead you. Oh, my gosh, are they hard to find. 855-935-TALK is our phone number. And, John, you're next. Welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. It's a retirement question. My wife and I are both 61. We're going to be retiring at the end of this year, 2024. Where do we start taking the retirement funds from? We have cash, 401ks, and brokerage accounts. Obviously, we're not 62. We're not Social Security or Medicare. So
Right.
We're going to have to be financing those things for the next few years, but it's just, where do we start taking the living expenses from?
Do you have enough? Have you done the math? Do you have enough money in your cash and your brokerage account right now to fund you for the next 9 years before Social Security kicks in?
Yes, in all reality, yes. There's probably between cash and brokerage, $5 million maybe.
Oh, gosh, yes, you're good. Okay, the place I would start, one, establish what your minimum emergency fund is going to be. Figure what that number is. 6 months expenses, a year expenses, 18 months expenses, whatever that number is.
Okay.
Then draw the cash first. Always give the assets cash first. Always give the assets with the greatest potential to make you money as much time as you can give them. And that's why this is the order. Cash to your emergency fund, because cash is basically trash. Then your brokerage account, because those assets are currently taxable. So they aren't likely to make net as much money as your 401k or IRAs will make. Your tax-advantaged accounts are last. If you have a Roth, it's dead last.
Unfortunately, no Roth. So if that's the sequence of taking them out, it would make sense then to keep our 401ks in fairly aggressive investments, like
yes, sir,
like 90-10 or 80-20.
Well, again, this is where you're now reaching retirement, which is where a risk tolerance number is combined with a risk need number. Risk tolerance is one thing, but you don't want to take more risk than you need to take, and that's why it is so critical at right now that you find some help in determining how much risk you need to take with your portfolio, and it may be that you only need to take 70-30 or 60-40. Because, okay, so you're not trying to die richest in the world, because if that's the case, you already failed. Musk already beat you. So you just want to build the right portfolio for what you need going forward.
So we were thinking about just keeping the 401ks and the current allocations that we have.
Yeah.
But frankly, I haven't changed since I was 30 years old, believe it or not. They're very, very aggressive. They're, 90% in equities, U.S. and foreign. But I'm just kind of thinking we're not going to need this money for a very long time, probably not until required minimum distribution,
which is 73 now. So you're
be 75.
And that's right. You're young. It'll be 75. I'm old. It'll be 73. You again, as long as your gut can handle that, great. And you've apparently proven that your gut can handle that. So why not?
Well, the gut was mitigated by the fact that we both make big incomes that are going to go away in a few months. And that's a consideration. You may want to back down to 80-20 or 70-30 just because your tolerance may have reduced. Go take the risk quiz at talkingrealmoney.com. It's free. All right. Thanks, guys.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being a part of the program. 855-935-TALK, 855-935-8255. The first step in building your risk profile, I think, is knowing your risk tolerance. And we've been using this very robust system to help people determine risk tolerance. It's based on a ton of really great academic research into risk. The questions sometimes seem a little wacky, but they're designed to establish your psychological profile when it comes to risk. I mean, it's not exact, but it's going to give you a decent idea of where your portfolio should be for how you feel. But again, the risk profile is a little different than that. First, you get the feelings part out of the way, and then you get the needs part out of the way. Let's say your portfolio is, 100% in equities right now, but it's $5 million. And you're going, well, gee, I only need $100,000 a year off of that $5 million. So maybe I don't need to be that aggressive. Maybe I can stand it, but maybe I should only be 70-30 or 60-40 or even 50-50 would get you the 100 under most scenarios. So the risk profile is very important. Knowing the whole picture. 855-935-TALK.
Tom and Don are talking real money. For your real life and real future, Tom and Don are talking real money.
And speaking of getting help in retirement, we believe that most people in the accumulation phase probably can invest, particularly if you know your risk tolerance. You probably can build a simple portfolio, maybe 3 funds, maybe 2, and do just fine building your wealth over time. That's not the hard part. The hard part comes when you get to retirement or you're getting closer to it. And I read this piece today in the Wall Street Journal about a woman named Alicia Manel. She is an economist, and she's the director of Boston College's Center for Retirement Research, a think tank she founded. And now she's an expert on retirement. However, what I found fascinating is she doesn't have the time or the interest in managing her portfolio. She says that she gets it. Her son works for a financial firm, and he tells her how to invest. She goes, if I had to figure out what to invest in, I'd have no clue. Quote, people have busy lives. Retirement planning should not be something they have to put a lot of effort into. That's when you need help. And she's getting it from her son, and I hope her son is a fee-only fiduciary advisor. I hope. But even an expert, somebody who makes a living helping people plan for retirement and learn about retirement, doesn't know how to do it herself. You need help. You cannot be an expert on everything. And that's why we believe you should either turn to us or others like us. And you want to know, so we'll tell you some other shows that are like ours. There aren't very many, but there are a few. Or you try to find a fee-only 100% fiduciary advisor. Go to talkingrealmoney.com/help. That'll help you know what to look for. There's even a form you can get them to fill out if they will. If somebody refuses to fill out the form, you should not work with them because it means they're hiding something they don't want to tell you. You have to force people to be honest sometimes, particularly when there's a lot of money involved. But the other thing you can do is ask us for help. We merged with a firm called Apello Wealth many years ago, and they are a fee-only 100% fiduciary firm who believes very similarly to the things we've been preaching for decades. And the advisors, many of the advisors with the firm, have agreed to help anybody who asks figure things out. Just wrap their head around their portfolio. And we're not going to manage your money for free. Okay? You understand why, right? It's called our job. But we will help you for free. And you won't get a sales pitch. You'll actually get help. And a lot of that help will even come from Tom. And I think, given the fact that he deserted me this weekend, you should all go to talkingrealmoney.com and click on the Meet an Advisor form and then specifically request Tom. Just request Tom every single time. I want Tom. Tom must do mine. But he will. He'll even sit down with you. Of course, as long as he has time. But it's so easy to do. You can meet with a lot of it. We've got a lot of really great people who work with us. Great people who care about you. And it's easy to meet with them. Just go to talkingrealmoney.com, and you'll see right up there at the top, there's the Contact Us button and all the other things where you can ask questions. But there's that one button that says Meet an Advisor.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast were current on the date recorded. Opinions, estimates, forecasts, and statements of financial market trends that are based on current market conditions constitute our judgment and are subject to change without notice, including any forward-looking estimates or statements which are based on certain expectations and assumptions. Although information and opinions given have been obtained from or based on sources believed to be reliable, no warranty or representation is made as to their correctness, completeness, or accuracy. Information presented on the podcast is not personalized investment advice from Appella Wealth. The views and strategies described may not be suitable for everyone. This podcast does not identify all the risks, direct or indirect, or other considerations which might be material to you when entering any financial transaction. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and profitable results cannot be guaranteed. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for informational, educational, and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. The podcast is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Appella Wealth, a fee-only registered investment advisor. Please see Appella Wealth's ADV Part 2A on our website for information regarding Appella's fees and services. Appella Capital, LLC, DBA Appella Wealth, is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm only transacts business in the states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Appella does not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing either stated or implied here should be inferred as providing such advice. Thanks for listening, and please visit talkingrealmoney.com for more information and important disclosure related to performance of any specific index or fund quoted in this podcast. Is anybody still listening?